Eric the Turf Teacher Jones. Oh, yeah! Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.
File a complaint. All right, so here's the introduction to filing a complaint. We're going to talk about the overview of the complaint submission process. We're going to discuss the importance of reviewing General Statute 89D-13, the exemptions. And this is talking about the people that are, doing landscape type work that's really not considered, landscape contracting. And there are a few other license holders that, can surpass the landscape contractor license. We will ensure understanding of unlicensed practice definition. So what it is that people are doing that, they need to have a license. So what does it mean to be unlicensed practice? And then last but not least, our licensing board, NCLCLB, does not accept anonymous complaints. And so I think that is a bigger issue, and that's why a lot of people refrain from turning people in because they don't want to be labeled as the squealer or the person who likes to tattletale. So those are the 4 objectives that we are going to talk about here in the course. And so the North Carolina Landscape Contractors Licensing Board's authority, as granted by the North Carolina General Assembly, only applies to matters specified in North Carolina General Statute 89D and the board's minimum standards. And like I said, we went over minimum standards last week in the class. So we've got a good understanding of what that is. And then all valid complaints, if they constituted that the complaint is valid, they are going to investigate it. Now, the board does not have policing powers to compel an individual or company to provide incriminating evidence. The board must first establish jurisdiction in the complaint, and when filing a complaint, providing evidence such as a quote, invoice, or similar documentation helps to establish board jurisdiction. It is very helpful to the board investigator and often produces more meaningful results, especially when taking the case before a judge. So, if we bid a job and it's $100,000, surely nobody's going to be $29,999, right? They are definitely going to be over the license limitation if we're bidding these higher end jobs. And so I think where a lot of people get in trouble, or contractors like ourselves don't know when to turn somebody in or file the complaint, is because they may just be mowing. And mowing is one of the exemptions. So you can cut $1 million worth of grass for a client and not have to have a landscape contractor license. So we are going to talk about these exemptions. And so general requirements for the complaints. So before submitting a complaint, be sure to read General Statute 89D-13, the exemptions, to make sure you understand what constitutes unlicensed practice or advertising. So think about this. Back in the day, I passed the landscape contractor examination either in 1997 or 1998. I can't remember. It was right after I got out of college. And the first thing I took was my pesticide exam, and then took the certified plant. Actually, no, I went ahead and took my landscape contractor. So I graduated in May of 97. I took it at the Green and Grow in January of 1998. And then that spring took my certified plant professional, which allowed me to get my the landscape contractor registration. So it's totally different. We used to be a registration. Now we are a license. So registration is different from license. The registration, we couldn't call ourselves a landscape contractor, but we could do any of the work. We just could not call ourselves. It was a title act. You could not call yourself a registered landscape contractor in North Carolina, but you could do the work. Now, when it became a license, you can't advertise that you're a landscape contractor, nor can you do the work. And so, per 21 NCAC 28B.0701 complaints, investigations. The board does not accept anonymous complaints or complaint submissions with a bogus name and or address. So pretty much they're probably looking for, you don't necessarily have to be another landscape contractor, but they want to make sure that you are a real person or a real entity making the complaint. So you can't find out that you lost a job to an unlicensed guy and then say you're ABC Landscaping. They want to know exactly who you are, and that's okay. That's okay. So here are the exemptions. Any federal, state, or local government agency performing landscaping on public property. So, our government, our state government, or even the feds, or our town municipality, if they have a staff of maintenance workers and they decide to plant 500 trees in the town, they can actually do that. They're not having to have a landscape contractor. But this is actually the government agency. So the government agency can't hire an unlicensed pro to do it. They've actually got to be doing the work themselves. The North Carolina Department of Transportation, NCDOT. However, for landscape installations or establishments periods for any project that exceeds the current contract amount requiring performance and payment bonds according to state law, NCDOT shall require a licensed landscape contractor to perform the work. So if you have to have performance and payment bonds, DOT is going to require that landscape contractor to do the work. NCDOT, at its discretion, may require a licensed landscape contractor for projects of any cost. So it doesn't have to be the $30,000 license limitation. If it's a $5,000 or a $1,500 project, they can, at their discretion, make sure that we are North Carolina licensed landscape contractors. Any property owner performing landscape work on his or her property, and that is a-okay. If a homeowner wants to plant $50,000 worth of shrubs around their house and landscape it and do all that, they are more than welcome to. Any person or business owning or operating a golf course, that's pretty much considered turf grass, but if they're going to renovate the golf course and plant a bunch of trees and do a bunch of other work, they don't have to, as long as they are the one owning the golf course. Now, if they sub it out, it's going to be a landscape contractor. Any landscaping work where the price of all contracts, here this is, for all contracts for labor, material, and other items for a given job site during any consecutive 12-month period is less than $30,000. So all contracts, like I said, we could work for an individual that owns 4 Chick-fil-A's, and if it's a $25,000 contract or even $29,999, it does not require that contractor be a licensed landscape contractor. Typically, it's, those kind of properties, if you multiple properties, it's going to be more than that. A local government unit shall not enact a local ordinance or regulation requiring licensure for landscaping work performed pursuant to this subdivision. Let's see. A general contractor licensed under Article 1 of Chapter 87 of the General Statutes who possesses a classification under General Statutes 87-B as a building contractor, residential contractor, or public utilities contractor. Can anybody tell me the only classification that's not listed there? There's 4 main classifications. Anybody know what that last one is? was a highway contractor, guys that are building our roads. But if you're a building contractor, residential contractor, or public utilities, you don't have to have a landscape contractor license. Now, are these guys going to be out there competing for us on landscape jobs? No. What this is basically saying that they can actually do the landscaping on their properties. Like if a residential contractor's building a custom home and he's got 7 or 8 employees that work for him that does, pours concrete, builds their retaining walls and does their landscaping, his license covers them. They are good to go. Number 7, any person or business licensed as an electrical contractor under Article 4 of Chapter 87 of the General Statutes who is designing, installing, or maintaining any electrical work, wiring, devices, appliances, or equipment. So the electrical contractor who's pretty much doing this is good to go. But again, we're not going to compete with the electrical contractor on planting trees. We're just talking about any type of electrical work in or around the landscape that's going on, including landscape lighting.
What's the parameter on the landscape lighting as far as voltage?
The only thing we can do, we can only do low voltage with the transformer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep. Anything else, that's hardwired or anything like that, it's going to be an electrical contractor. Any person or business licensed as a plumbing contractor under Article 2 of Chapter 87 of the General Statutes who is installing pipes, fixtures, apparatus, or appurtenances to supply water thereto or convey sewage or other waste therefrom, including the installation, repair, or maintenance of water mains, water taps, service lines, water meters, backflow prevention assemblies, supplying water for irrigation systems, or repairs to an irrigation system. So again, this is the work that they're doing. Again, a plumber's not going to bid on planting, 500 trees for a municipality. They're just not going to do it. A professional engineer.
May I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt.
No, man.
I'm a spray irrigation on wastewater. And you just number 8 in general statute, when the license came out, I'm a class 2 operator, had 3 wastewater treatment plants. And so as golf course, I have to have a license to install golf course irrigation.
Yeah.
For reclaimed water.
For reclaimed water, yes.
Yes, sir. And so reclaimed water, as far as back then, whenever this landscape license, that's why so I got spray irrigation, which this is a hard class to take. It's probably one of the hardest tests I've ever taken in my life, but back in the day in 2021, but so the water supply, like number 8, hate this.
What about it?
So my license back in the day, whenever this first landscape irrigation license came out, they said, well, that trumps all your irrigation license as far as landscape. So I didn't have to have my landscape irrigation license.
Oh, okay.
I could go under spray irrigation under the NC Pollution Control System Operators Certificate Commission.
Yeah, and you were pretty much doing it for golf courses and not residential, correct?
No, it's not golf courses. I was excluded because every bit of water you do is reclaimed. That's where it fell under because I was excluded. Everything is reclaimed.
Okay.
Even wells to municipal to whatever is reclaimed water. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Everybody
makes sense. Yeah. And, and really the only time I've ever really dealt with it is, the town of Cary, they're using the reclaimed water. Well, number 9, a professional engineer licensed pursuant to Chapter 89C or Charlie of the General Statutes. So a PE can come in and actually do landscape contracting. A professional landscape architect under Chapter 89A of the General Statutes. And then 11, any individual or business engaged in any of the following activities while performing that activity. And here they go. A, clearing and grading plots of areas of land. So it's pretty much going to be your grading contractor or somebody that's hired by the GC to come clear a lot for them. Doing erosion control, arboriculture or arboriculture, however you say it, including consultations on pruning and removal of trees, because they are certified through the International Society of Arboriculture. The installation of sod, seed, or plugs by sod producers certified by the plant industry. Let's see, certified the Plant Industry Division of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And then landscape constructions performed by utilities contractors for the purpose of grading and erosion control. And utility contractors, they're making a mess all the time. They're digging up people's yards and directional boring and stuff. So they're having to do some landscape work when they finish. They're not required to have that license. And then lawn mowing, turf edging, and debris removal services. So somebody that's only mowing, blowing, edging the shrub beds, and then actually doing leaf collection. Turf management or lawn care services only, including fertilization, aeration, weed control, or other turf management or lawn care practices other than mowing or edging. So if you're, True Green and Weed Man, these guys do not have to have landscape contractor license because that's all they're doing. They're only doing fertility. They have their own license. They've got to have a pesticide license. They got to have ornamental and turf commercial applicator 026 dash whatever their license number is. And
Eric,
then,
can I ask a question on that?
yes, sir.
Very simple. Is that you're not pruning bushes. I'm not a landscape contractor. You said you could mow 1,000,000 acres of turf grass, and I've got my pesticide license, and I'm not pruning anything. And can I still, can I still maintain this without a contractor?
Um, if they ask you what to prune, so you're there, doing fertility apps, and they're like, "Hey, can you prune my shrubs?"
Yeah, but what the question is I can mow all the turf I want to, correct? Without
Yes.
license. But I got my pesticide license.
Okay.
Can I, and I'm not pruning, not doing anything besides
Oh,
mowing and pesticide. So I don't have
okay.
to have my landscape.
You do not have to have a landscape contractor
Thank you,
license.
sir.
Yep. And think about it. With turf grass management, or lawn care, same thing. You're doing fertility apps. You're going to do 6 or 7 applications for this client a year. The typical residential client, what, $200 for fertilize? I mean, and you do 7 apps, that's $1,400. And so if they ask you to mulch and pine needle, you can do it because you're still going to be way under the $30,000 license limitation. So, but if you're doing it for a commercial client, it's a big shopping center or big apartment complex, and let's say the mowing's $25,000, and you've got $3,000 of fertility, and then you add another 7 or 8,000 for pine needles or whatever. Then you have to have that license because you're over the 30,000. So, and here's another one for you, Billy. Design, installation, and maintenance of on-site wastewater disposal or reuse systems with the on-site wastewater permit specifications. So you're covered under that. And then any person performing landscaping work on a farm for use in agriculture production, farming, or ranching. Let's see. Filing a complaint. Well, let's see. If you would prefer to mail a complaint, please click here to complete a hard copy PDF of it. And I think I have one on here of the complaint form, which you may then mail, email, or fax to the board. If not, you can actually do it on their website. Please be as detailed and specific as possible when submitting a complaint. Cite addresses of work in progress is extremely helpful to the investigators. Attach any documentation, pictures, or evidence that might be substantiate to the complaint. And then please be aware that photos taken with an iPhone need to be printed out and mailed, printed, scanned, and emailed, or emailed directly to the board's email address. Photos from an iPhone submitted by text are not accessible. And once the complaint is closed, the complainant will receive correspondence from the board with the results of the case. Well, I'm sure you turn in somebody, they're going to be calling you, ticked off at you before you hear from the board. But complaint details are a matter of public record. Once a case has been investigated and closed, anyone, including the licensee, can request this information. Per 21 NCAC 28B Period 0701 complaints, investigations. The board does not accept anonymous complaints, again, or complainant submissions with a bogus name and or address. Additionally, the board does not have any authority with contract disputes relative to financial issues, which would be up to the courts. The North Carolina Landscape Contractors Licensing Board's authority, as granted by the North Carolina General Assembly, only applies to matters specified in North Carolina General Statute 89D and the board's minimum standards. And so, anonymous complaints. The NCLCLB does not investigate anonymous complaints. This is from Chapter 28B, Section .0701 of the North Carolina Administrative Code. As a licensed landscape contractor, you may ask why, and it's to protect you. Anonymous complaints work both ways. You would not want an anonymous complaint filed against you. I mean, you really wouldn't. We're licensed contractors. If we're doing something wrong, you know, the board needs to know who has submitted the complaint. An anonymous source could file an anonymous complaint against you for no valid reason, only to cause you trouble, expense, and damage to your reputation. When anonymous complaints are accepted, it opens the door for abuse by people wanting to engage in personal retaliations against business competitors or to individuals. Absolutely. You know, you got a disgruntled employee that you fire, you know, they might just be filing against you for no reason at all. So it has to be anonymous. And so with anonymous complaints, anyone can file a complaint that is malicious and completely unfounded, and they can repeatedly submit trivial complaints with no accountability or consequences. So it's making, you know, whoever's deciding to file the complaint, it's really making sure that everything is legit and that nothing's going to, you know, that it is a legitimate complaint. The person is unlicensed. You have proof. You have to submit your name when filing this complaint. If not, you know, let's say if they were hidden, somebody could submit, you know, 10 complaints against somebody. You know, and that's not fair. That's not fair to the contractor. Let's see. Anonymous complaints can be a tremendous waste of the board's resources and staff, taking the time away from genuine issues that affect the safeguarding of life, health, and property of the general public. Let's see. 21 NCAC 28B period 0701 complaints investigation. All complaints filed with the board shall be filed either on a form provided by the board or via the board's online complaint process at nclclb.com. All complaints must contain the following information: date of alleged violation. When did you first find out about it? Contact information for licensee and or unlicensed contractor. Contractor license number if known. So you can file a complaint on somebody that's, you know, not adhering to our minimum standards. Complainant name and contact information, address where alleged violations occurred, description of the work performed, copy of written contract, and attestation by signature that the information provided is true and accurate to the best of complainant's knowledge. So with that written contract, when do we have to, no matter what the license limitation is, at what dollar amount do we have to have a written contract signed by both parties? $5,000. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter what the license limitation is. If we're doing work that's over $5,000, we have to have a signed contract with the client. The client can write it. We don't have to be the ones writing it. Usually it's our estimate. There's a place down there for everybody to sign off on. The board will not investigate anonymous complaints. Incomplete complaints will not be investigated either. Can't stress that enough. There are 3 types of complaints that the board typically receives. One is for advertising, one is the unlicensed practice, or a combination of the two, and minimum standards. There are differences in the way each of the complaint types are processed. So the first one is advertising unlicensed contractor. If it appears that the individual or company is advertising as a landscape contractor in violation of North Carolina General Statutes 89D, the board will notify the individual or company of its position and, depending on the facts of the case, may seek an injunction in Superior Court. An injunction is a court order instructing the individual or company to cease the activity complained about. If the activity continues after an injunction is issued, the board may pursue a contempt action. If an order of contempt is issued, the individual against who the order is issued may be required to go to jail. Sorry, I'm turning this phone down. 4 minimum standards. All licensed contractors must meet minimum standards. These minimum standards are set out in Administrative Rules 0.0501-0.0511. And once a complaint has been filed, the complaint has been assigned to an investigator. The investigator will contact the licensee to determine what the licensee has and could do to mitigate any further problems. After completing the investigation, the investigator will submit a recommendation to the board, and the recommendation can range from dismissal of the action to a hearing in which disciplinary action should be imposed. If a case is set for hearing, it will be forwarded to the board's attorney, who will draft the notice of hearing. If the attorney is given settlement authority, the attorney will extend a settlement offer to the licensee. If the licensee agrees to the settlement and the settlement is accepted by the board, the case will be closed and the complainant will be notified. If the case is not settled, it will proceed to the hearing and the board will issue a final decision. And here we do have an online complaint form, and here is the complaint form. I've got it screenshotted here, so we're going to kind of skip over that. But required information, print legibly and sign today's date, type of complaint, if it's unlicensed practice, advertising, minimal standard violation, or other information on individual company in question, date the violation was noted, company's contact information, license number if it's applicable. So, I mean, usually if it's a minimum standard violation, you'll have the license number. You'll be able to look it up. But if it's for unlicensed practice, they're not going to have it. If the job completed, yes or no, estimated completion date, vehicle tag, description of vehicles, estimated crew quantity, property information, all the way down to, is it residential, commercial, institutional, or other? General work being performed, attach any additional documentation, photos, contracts, invoices, etc. If you require additional space to detail your complaint, please submit an additional sheet or sheets of paper. And that goes in that top blank there. Then complainant information, your name, address, city, state, zip, phone number, email. Are you a homeowner, general concerned citizen, landscaper, license number if applicable, or other? And what outcome, if any, are you seeking? It's pretty much, you just want to see them, get their license. The board will work with them. And I've had guys come to my seminars that have been caught without a license. And typically everybody's like, man, I did not know. And I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know that. And that's why I'm here, getting my license, getting my continuing education, and, trying to put that in the past. Disciplinary actions, civil penalties, injunctions, and notifications information. 89D-22 is disciplinary action. The board may deny, restrict, suspend, or revoke a license or refuse to issue or renew one if a licensee or applicant does any of the following: employs the use of fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation in obtaining or attempting to obtain a license or the renewal of a license, practices or attempts to practice landscape construction or contracting by fraudulent misrepresentation. Or 3, commits an act of gross malpractice or incompetence as determined by the board. And 4, has been convicted of or pled guilty or a no contest to a crime that indicates that the person is unfit or incompetent to practice as a landscape contractor, or that indicates that the person has deceived or defrauded the public. 5, has been declared incompetent by a court of competent jurisdiction. And 6, has willfully violated any provision in this chapter or any rules adopted by the board. 7, uses or attempts to use the seal in a fraudulent or unauthorized manner. We all have to have our seals. It's going to be on every piece of paper that leaves your office. And fails to file the required surety bond or letter of credit to keep the bond or letter of credit in force. B, the board may assess costs, including reasonable attorney fees and investigatory costs in a proceeding under this section against an applicant or licensee found to be in violation of this chapter. Civil penalties. In addition to taking any of the actions permitted under General Statutes 89-22, the board may assess a civil penalty not in excess of $2,000 for each violation of any section of this chapter or violation of any rules adopted by the board. The clear proceeds of any civil penalty assessed under this section shall be remitted to the civil penalty and forfeiture fund in accordance with General Statutes 115 Charlie-457.2. And before imposing and assessing a civil penalty and fixing the amount of the penalty, the board shall, as a part of its deliberations, take into consideration the following factors: the nature and gravity and persistence of the particular violation, the appropriateness of the imposition of a civil penalty when considered alone or in combination with other punishment, and whether the violation was willful and malicious, and 4, if any other factors that would tend to mitigate or aggravate the violations found to exist. And if the board finds that a person who does not have a license issued under this chapter is engaging in the practice of landscape construction or contracting, the board may appear in its own name in Superior Court in actions for the injunctive relief to prevent any person from violating the provisions of this chapter or the rules adopted by the board. B, a licensed landscape contractor shall notify the board of any written complaints filed against the landscape contractor not resolved within 30 days from the date of complaint was filed by registered mail to the board. All right, those are identical slides. And so that is basically directly from the board's website. We kind of went over short and sweet, but does anybody have any questions about this?
I do, Eric. I know everybody's ready to go. So if I'm have a, I got 2 questions. So if I dissolve my company this year as a retiring, and can I keep my personal
Yes, sir. You can
license?
keep your personal license. Yeah.
Do I have to be bonded?
You will have to be bonded to be licensed. Yes.
And I can just do it on personal.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do a personal bond.
Let me another question. So over, like if I'm bush hogging, 500 acres and then spraying Roundup around trees. I got my pesticide license, no contractor's license. It's $100,000 job. Do I have to be a landscape contractor?
If all you're doing is
Sure.
mowing and spraying Roundup, no, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions, comments, concerns? No? Well, man, y'all might get out early. Billy, this is your last class, ain't it, bud?
Yes, sir. And I appreciate everybody and sorry for everybody, my loud mouth and asking Eric questions. Y'all need to ask him questions because he is very intelligent. He knows everything, and I'm shutting my mouth up. But
I don't know about all that, man. I learned
no,
more from
you
y'all than y'all
are.
could ever
You
learn from
are.
me.
And you got military background. Your father did it, and as far as landscaping, and I think your brother's.
Brent's in it now, yeah.
Yes.
So
So you know,
my
y'all
nephews.
ask this. Y'all ask this old boy a question if you got some questions about stuff. I've never turned anybody on a complaint, but one of my good friends is a big landscaper with a big, huge company. Turns everybody in. I mean, I've never done it. This old boy's got a lawnmower and a weed eater.
You're not going,
17 years
yeah,
old. Hook up.
yeah. And I mean, to be honest with you, a one person mowing firm, they ain't gonna be able to do $30,000 for a client in 1 year. I mean, if it is, he's gonna work his tail. She's gonna work her tail off. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're gonna mow it what 32 times, $100. There's $3,200. You still got 25 plus thousand in mulching or pine needling. You know,
So what if you're having a business that you get $45,000 a year for?
got to
Do
have
you have to
license.
have a contractor's license in?
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
mowing
if
it, trimming
if
the
you
shrubs, mulching it,
yeah,
everything.
when you start mulching, doing everything, you got to have the license. Yeah. If
That's
you were
what I
just
thought. I
mowing
know
it,
a lot of people that don't have it
yeah,
that
that's
are
where they
doing
get.
stuff like that.
That's where they're getting in trouble. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's where they would get in trouble. Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
just
because
like
they've got
Eric. I'm sorry.
no.
Sorry. It's just like Eric said like my buddy. I mean, he loves cars. I love cars. I'm a hot rodder. He is too, and we're we shared jobs together. But he is strict. He took the test 5 times, and he's
Wow.
super smart, and finally passed it. And so he's turning everybody in. He's got an employee to hire with a truck that goes on a job site. If he bid a job and didn't get it, see if they got their license. And I'm not going to name the name. And I said, man, hey, don't do that. But you overbidded it. But um, I agree with having. I mean, you got to have them. But cheese and rice, we we have to follow so many daggone rules and regulations.
Everybody else should have to too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But we have to keep up with them. But what's the fine? If you don't have them, you
Yeah.
know,
They can stop.
$2,000. I mean, okay, $2,000, and you still get paid.
Yeah. It's just like Chris was saying. If it's a company and they got 10 employees and they're the ones that's going to be getting these larger contracts. Um,
I
the
done
same.
that one contract by myself last year.
Do what?
I did that whole property by myself last year at $45,000.
45,000.
I did it by myself.
What all that include? Mowing, trim.
Mowing, edging, pruning, mulch. It was 100 yards of mulch, fertilization, irrigation, maintenance, everything.
So you worked your butt off though. And
4
100
hours,
yards. Do what?
4 hours every week.
4 hours every week. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
then when I
yeah,
pruned, I took another day to prune.
yeah,
Maybe a
yeah,
day this week, a day next week, and I'm done.
yeah. So you're over 200 hours plus for that
Yeah,
client a year. Yeah. And That'll get you up there, yeah.
But they
your
just
license
went bankrupt.
do what?
They went bankrupt.
Oh, the homeowner,
No, the property.
the
It was a
property.
business.
Yeah. It was a
They
business. Oh,
bought the property to hopefully have renters. It's a big building.
yeah.
And they never got anybody in there. So they bought $11 million building and went belly up.
No.
So I got all my money up until December, and he called me and said, I said, you want to renew the contract? He said, yeah. I said, okay. And he calls me a week later and says, no, we're gonna shut it down until April. And then the guy that got me the job said, well, no, they're going bankrupt because they couldn't get nobody in the building.
Yeah.
So that was a sweet deal. I mean, it just showed me right there, I don't need a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, that's true.
I got my light stand on with the weed eater mounted to the side. There ain't nobody walking that property weed eating. I can weed eat that whole property by myself. It take me an hour and 15 minutes to edge it by myself, and I weed eat it as I'm mowing it, and I don't use but one tank of gas. Where somebody's walking around that property with a weed eater,
Yeah,
it would take 2 tanks of gas.
Yeah.
Oh, and I use it all week.
And Chris, you ain't on Facebook. You
No.
let the rip, ain't you, Tater Chip? And you
That's
ain't
it.
you probably lunch times at 12 and you ain't eating lunch. You ready?
Nope, I'm rolling. And I hit the blower and I blow the curbs and everything off. It takes me 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm done. I ride that stand-on mower and blow as I go. Everything's cleaned off and done.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody walking this property. It takes somebody 8 to 9 hours to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And I say the old-fashioned way, I use stand-ups.
Yeah.
I got weed eaters mounted on them, backpacks on my back, and I'm blowing and going, getting it done. And I'm like, who needs help?
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of trying to find help. I said, I'm through. I'm done.
Yeah.
This
I
is
get
the
it,
way
man.
I do it.
Yeah.
And I roll on with it.
Roll with it.
And your
Yeah.
profit margins probably, if you're doing it this way, if you had 6 employees versus you doing it by yourself, you're probably making more money.
I'm at 30%.
30%. Well, shit, any business is 10 to 15 at the
Most.
Yes, sir.
Now, I've done that for 5 or 6 years. I mean, I worked sun up, sun down 6 days a week and went in the hole. And I said, I ain't doing this mess no more. And when you can't find help, then you start learning how to do things. I buy equipment that I can use to get the job done, just like the mulch.
Yeah.
Do it by myself. That dingo is a sweet machine.
Yeah.
Step off of it, rake it out, go on and do it again.
Well, any other questions, comments, concerns?
All right, brother. Hope to see you next year.
All right. Who's going to join me next week?
I am.
Done.
All right. You're done too, ain't you, Heath?
I'm done.
I missed several.
Okay. So Heath and Billy won't be back next week.
Right.
Chris, make sure that you don't do 2 twice for yourself. Because I made that mistake and called Eric and I had to take.
Yeah, I know. I got to look at my paper because I'm all mixed up.
You have to take a test.
Yeah.
From somebody. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and create the link for next week, and it'll have but what I'm doing, the very first class that I started with, we'll go ahead and start it again. Sir?
That's next week.
Be next week, yes, sir. Next Wednesday.
I missed like the first 1 or 2 before I realized you were doing it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I was thinking it would be in June or July.
Oh no, I'm doing the 3-7 classes. The 7 classes 3 times. So 7 weeks, then 7 weeks, then 7 weeks.
Got you.
That we started in the first week in January.
This is my 3rd, so I've got 4 left to do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I missed one. Well, I thought I missed one. Maybe I didn't miss one in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you've been with me on these webinars for years, just like Billy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad you do it because I don't want to go
sit all day.
I went to yours one time and done the 7 pesticides in one day.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm good to go for a long time, but I still got to have them every year
Yeah.
because you can't get them all one time.
Yeah. Well,
I agree with that. Sorry, Eric. Sorry.
oh, you're right, man. We got 2 classes, integrated pest management and then PP, transportation, storage, and security that you'll
I
get
took
2
that.
pests. You took that. Okay.
That was with one of your other classes, I think.
Yeah. Got you. Yeah. We did 2 back to back or something like that.
Yeah.
Where I missed it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool deal.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and email the proof of attendance for this class and send the roster to Miss Peter, and everything's good. Okay.
Okie doke.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
All right. Appreciate it, y'all. Y'all take
Thank you.
care. See ya.
The Turf Teacher Jones. Teaching you life lessons, business strategies, and leadership.